again.
Yes.
So again, a very big and a warm welcome to you, Deshna. And as a lot of you may have seen, Shyam shared it on the group. Deshna is the creator of some very beautiful, some very exhaustive work, and she's going to tell us about that in a bit. Deshna is a communication designer, visual artist, a photographer as well, and a researcher. She's also a curator and an educator. And as the co founder and creative director of Studio Anugraha, she has dedicated her practice to largely exploring the intersection of design, culture, philosophy, and documentation. So, Deshna, she got her education from Sir J.J. Institute of Applied Arts, the London College of Communication, and the Royal College of Art. And she brings together this beautiful and immaculate combination and juxtaposition of design thinking, storytelling, and very deep inquiry into creating meaningful visual experiences. She has a wonderful experience in the design industry, and through Studio Anugraha, she has led and contributed to like a diverse body of work, and largely spanning around publication design, editorial design, branding, exhibitions, cultural documentation of sorts. And I think she's going to tell us so much about the cultural documentation because it's really intensive and exhaustive work that Studio Anugraha has done there. And and the studio is also particularly known for its extensive documentation of the Kumbh Mela, which I will leave to her. She's going to tell us about that. And over the years, she has worked very closely with a lot of artists, cultural institutions, educational organizations, many foundations, environmental initiatives, and a large step into the direction of, I think, social impact projects. That's where I think her expertise as a designer who's also awakened towards the socio-economic and cultural systems that really plays out wonderfully. So I'll invite her to the space. The space is yours, Deshna. Cannot wait to know more about your work and you. Yes, let's go.
Thank you, Ankita. I think I'll just add quickly one more thing that I really love about Deshna. Think one of my mutual friends, we had a mutual friend in Odisha. He introduced me to Deshna's work. And the first thing that really captivated me was how she talks about grace and gratitude, how it's part of her process. So that was very intriguing to me, and I felt it's it'll be a great opportunity for all of us to tap into how what gratitude and grace means to her, and how we can together sit with these thoughts. Over to you, Deshna. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita, and thank you, Sham. I think everything that you've described is aspirational for me. It's just your generosity in saying what you say. Um, okay, so I am best sharing when I have visuals because I feel like that's a space that I can express through best. So I have a lot of slides, but I'm going to kind of just mention that Ankita and Sham spoke to me a couple of days ago, and they set me on this really nice tone, which, of grace and gratitude, which means everything to me. But they set the tone and said, why don't you speak through that lens? And so, in this sort of sharing, I've got a few prompts which can be participatory if you like. So, yeah, if you'd like to engage, feel free. There's no sort of outputs, but it's just spaces of pauses and contemplation that I've just tried to weave in some of the slides, which are prompts that have helped me in my creative expression and journey, or in just everyday living. So you'll find spurts of that, and yeah, if you feel like engaging, do so. So I
So,
will.
do they need any notebook notepads for that? Not needed. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen and is my screen visible? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Okay, so
Desh.
if we just all sort of start with just taking a moment, I think I need that the most myself. But anyway, we'll take a moment to just arrive here and be in the now and just kind of become aware of sounds or anything that you are in front of, um, is around you. We just try to bring ourselves to the now. Um, Before we begin, this is something that helps me when I'm responding creatively or just generally trying to focus. If you're seated on a chair, just simply try to place your feet on the ground. Very often our feet are like hanging, but there's something really nice about grounding. So if we try to place our feet on the ground and just see what the ground feels like, is it soft? Is it hard? Is it cold? Is it warm? Um, just a sense of grounding and space. And yeah, have you ever thought of what the flooring is made of? Who made it? So, without leaving our seat, let's see if we can find around us something that you'd like to rest your eye on. Something that you may have stopped noticing but is around you. Often we take so much for granted. It could be a mug, a plant, a notebook, just a window, even just how the light is falling, anything. We just take a moment to notice. Whatever it is that we might have noticed, we can see how this object quietly contributes to how this object contributes to our lives, and all the people, material, places, and stories connected to it. It could be as simple as a pencil, it could be anything that's around. But if we just go beyond its existence and what it means to us and how it contributes in our lives, we'll just take a few seconds to think. So, if you've given this a thought, if there's any expression of gratitude, maybe it's one word that we can all think of and hold it, um, for this object, for its maker, for who brought this object close to us, what feeling is associated with it. Just a moment of feeling grateful. Okay. Thank you all for that space. It helps me to, when I start working or responding creatively, I like to bring myself in a space of gratitude. I find that uh, the space of gratitude is the easiest space to feel happy. And I think um, it's also the most instant way to feel happy. So, and who doesn't want to be happy? So it's just something that has helped me in whatever the weather is or whatever's going on in life. But just this 3 minutes of this kind of an exercise just helps to kind of come back, feel happy, feel grateful, gather myself, and then get on. So I'll start with sharing a few anecdotes that have been inspiring in my life. As Ankita said, I've been extremely fortunate to have had education in some really beautiful spaces in India and in London, and also have had many mentors along the way who have, inspired, held my hand in this journey and so far. And I'm really, really fortunate and grateful to have them hold me. I feel like a lot of anything positive in the practice or in me today is a lot of their doing. So I'll reminisce with one little anecdote. So this on my screen, there's a small picture of a gentleman whose name is, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving, but if you can, this is Michael Wolf. Michael is now 88 years old. He's based in London and he's a designer. When I was studying here 15 years ago, I'm in London right now again, but 15 years ago when I was a student here, I still am a student. When I was formally studying, he was very he was very kind in allowing me to spend time in his studio. He's a very well-known brand designer. And I think a lot of things in the practice today, I would say I've found inspiration in just being around him and observing him work. So I wanted to share a small anecdote. So at the time when I used to visit Michael's studio in London, there would be projects that I'm observing or supporting or, learning from. And we would have emails that are exchanged as part of the small team in the studio. So in one such email uh, that he sent me about something, when we write emails, we would address each other as dear Michael or dear Deshna or whatever. So he wrote me this email saying, dear Deshna, whatever, email, body text. In the addressing, he forgot, or I don't know, it was deliberate, but he wrote DEA and my name. So he forgot the R. And as in today's day and age, small typos, you ignore, you get on. It's not something you stop at. You just understand what had to be communicated and you sense make and you go on. So I didn't even remember it. I mean, it's not something I registered it for a second, but it's not something I remembered longer than that. I was a student back then, living in student housing here, and next day in my post box, I had a handwritten letter R that was lying, and I still have that to date in my diary, and I carry it with me everywhere I go. So this was Michael and his lessons in noticing, I would say that he gifted all of us with, which has been really precious. And I think like it's the first step in the creative practice or journey uh, to be able to be present and to notice. And then it is with that noticing that sometimes you strike a connect and then it leads to feeling. And then after feeling, Michael would say, as communication designers or graphic designers, which is a large part of my practice, the first thing when you're designing for someone or something is to put ourselves in their shoes, and we need to empathize. Only then can we really understand who they are. So this stepwise sort of journey that he would take us on of noticing, then deeper noticing, leading to feeling, then empathizing, and then the goal as designers or communicators is to evoke. So it's to evoke whatever feeling you'd like, which surrounds that subject matter. But for him, feeling was very important, and he would keep telling us if we don't feel, then we will never evoke feeling. And without feeling, if you do anything, it will not stay. It will just pass. So the attempt has always been to feel deeply and to see how we can express to evoke some sort of feeling, hopefully. Not always successful, but that's the quest in the journey. Okay. Also, then I encountered this beautiful quote by Mary, which I thought is so powerful. Attention is the beginning of devotion. Okay, another anecdote. Yeah, sorry if you're. I mean, I have a few pieces of work in here, but I'm uh, I'm talking less about work because I think work is more of a byproduct. A lot of inspiration that has led to the work. I feel like it's that it's an opportune time to think about that and share that and acknowledge all those who brought that. So I'm spending more time on that, but I can send you links of work and all of that later. Um, so this is um, something that came off my memory yesterday night when I was thinking about what might I share today. So again, as a student here, we were attending a lecture of this artist musician whose name is Brian Eno. This is quite popular here in the UK, and also if you are into music, you might know him. So Brian's lecture was, overfull. We were sitting on steps of the lecture theater. People were sitting to want to see it. He's really popular, but he's also really engaging. So we were in this whole packed lecture theater, and he has this style of delivery where he'll walk up and down the stage and present and talk very casually. Um, Words came to him very naturally, and he's you can feel his flow when you are in the audience. Uh, at that time during the lecture, somebody in the audience closer to the front started coughing. Not very badly, but maybe a couple of times the person sneezed or coughed. And Brian had a bottle of water while he was pacing up and down in his hand and speaking. So without kind of even stopping his sentence or what he was talking about, he naturally went to that person and gave the bottle in the crowd. It was not something that it almost felt like when you drive and you know how to drive, you're just you don't have to stop to kind of see where the brake is or the accelerator. It's that automatic. So it was that seamless and that automatic for him to have that gesture. So today, after 14 years of that lecture, all of us who were present, a lot of my classmates and I talk about this years after, remember this from that lecture. We don't really remember what content or what he delivered, but this gesture has stayed with all of us so strong. And we know Brian Eno not for his music or art, but for this quality in him. Um, so this quote by Maya Angelou, who says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Again, something that Michael would reiterate, and we would, then you start sort of thinking about it, and then you start thinking about feeling without actually feeling, because there also is a problem. But then once you're a little more aware, this thing of immersing feeling starts to happen, and uh, it it puts you in an intuitive space, which then helps to respond in a way that hopefully evokes feeling. So yeah, these little gestures, moments, which has left impact on me, I think are ones where I felt deeply. So I thought it might be nice to share. Okay, some work. So
Thank you for sharing these beautiful, anecdotes and the how you value each of these, especially the teacher. And whatever you've learned so far. Thank you so much for sharing this.
all
Really
right.
humbles us.
it's them. So I pass that gratitude to them. Okay. So just as we speak of feeling, while 14 years ago when I was student going to Michael every weekend or every day that I had time off in university learning, um, my route from where I lived to his studio and generally my university, I had to cross the River Thames in London each time I was going somewhere because I was close to the river, but on the north side, and everything was more on the south side. So the river became something that became my everyday in that period, and I would walk over bridges or walk by the river. Um, and deep down inside of me, because I had just left India and it was the first time that I was living away from home, I always thought that I want to make work around Indian culture. And when I was in London also, while I was really excited, I kept thinking that something inside of me is wanting to do something about Indian culture. It was a gnawing feeling that was there. And then this river um, route was an everyday sort of encounter. And I would take pictures. I had just learned using a DSLR, just learned how to do photography using a DSLR camera. And as part of almost practice, I would take lots of pictures by the river. And then we had to, as part of our master's program, we had to select the subject towards the end, which they call the final major project, where you're allowed to uh, create a brief for yourself and then respond to it. So I thought, I started building a relationship with the river here, and I thought, you know, what is water? Like, how can water have names? It's so universal, and um, those thoughts kind of took me to the work of this artist called Ronnie Horn, who's done some really lovely image making around rivers. And then I started to think and question of what is really universal and what is the meaning of universal. Some of these thoughts led me to a bit of reading around um, philosophies that talk of universalism, even looking at universal design, inclusive design, accessible design from a slightly formal stance. But anyway, this feeling of wanting to do something or make work around Indian culture was still there. So I started to think, okay, can I find a river in India and can I see if these two rivers, which are so far apart, have something in common, or how let's explore this. And it was just a thought, and I'd heard a lot about Varanasi, never been there, but I thought, okay, I'm going back home in summer. Let's see what the river there, what the Ganga there has to sort of offer in terms of, yeah, just as a photographer then who was doing a lot of image making, taking pictures, what would I get out of that? So I went back in the summer and went to Varanasi for 10 days and made a lot of, again, took a lot of images, tried to make observations of, observed people, what was happening in the river, by the river, the interactions, all of that. And then I came back here, and my project became about looking at the two rivers. And I had about thousands of images about the two landscapes around the river. And then the student housing or the room that I printed like little thumbnail photos of all of these. And it was almost like surrounding myself with 5,000 images of the two rivers on two walls and being in that for 3-4 weeks and just pairing images and seeing what happens. And that led to um, this is a poster, but of course on the left is Ganga and on the right is Thames. So I started categorizing those images into culture, water, texture, form, and lights. All of these are very universal design principles, so to say, or containers to hold a lot. And then there were so many images, it started becoming narratives. and it turned into 5 books around the culture, water, texture, form, and lights. And the left side of every book was Ganga, and the right side was the Thames. So it was just this documentation that opened up new ways of seeing, thinking, aside of learning the skills of photography, which I always wanted to. And this project gave me that opportunity. And then when you start unpacking meaning, there was a lot in this one. There was, if you see, it's canopies, but in Varanasi, under canopies, you have like astrologers, predicting futures. You're under canopies, you have people eating. It's the whole riverside is dotted with restaurants. So, within the same form, lots of different cultural connotations. And then there was the book on water, which is some spreads are here. But this book, you couldn't tell left and right what is Ganga, what is Thames. It was very interchangeable. And it was very nice to see how at some places there was blending and the whole feeling of universalism that would take over. And then on some pages, there's this diversity that would lay itself out. So anyway, this project was at the time, I didn't even know if it made any sense. I all I knew is I enjoyed it and I was learning photography. But it became an important one because it led to a lot of things today that are part of the practice. It also led to the birth, I would say, of the studio. And I'll just explain in a minute. Before I do that, what happened while I studied. So I studied 2 masters here at the London College of Communication. I made this body of work happened about the rivers. And then I went to the Royal College of Art for 2 years, again, which was something that Michael pushed me. He said, you just need to go there and learn. And I didn't even know anything about the college. He just said, appear for the interview. It's a good learning process. I appeared, I got in. Then I called up my parents saying, can I please study more? So it was very organic, but he's held my hand through a lot of this journey. Anyway, so I studied at the Royal College, and for towards the end of my time there, for 6 months, we had to write a thesis on again something that we wanted to pick, but had to have design as its kind of core of focus. And at this point, I think I hit a bit of a low because I enjoyed life in London, but I started feeling a lack inside of me. Like, why all of this? What is it going to lead to? And almost like an existential crisis, I would say that what's the point of being a designer, really?
How old
And
were you then, if I may know?
24.
Oh my God. Same. I was like 24, the same thing happened, the existential crisis questioning, and that lead to, wow, very interesting.
Maybe that's the age when it hits. Uh, okay. So, yeah, I think my tutors at the Royal College were again really lovely. They said, don't make work till you believe in it. So I started asking myself, where do I find meaning? That was the question. And at that point, it felt like, yeah, doctors are so useful, they save lives, or, teachers are great because they pass on learning, or all of these NGOs that work for people, work for causes, they're making some real difference. To me, back then and even now, it felt like some of those spaces of helping fellow human beings or any other forms of life through what you do is valuable. And I was like, what am I going to do? Add more bags and shoes and whatever to the world? What's the point? Or design for all of this kind of stuff. So um, then, with the help of my tutors and some guidance, they steered me into reading a lot around examples of practices that do cause-based work with social impact. And then it felt like, okay, if I'm a designer and those are the skills that I've spent my life learning, how can I use them for things that feel meaningful to me? So that's where Anugrah's philosophy was born in my dissertation at college, where I said, okay, at if I have a practice, that time, of course, there was no Anugrah, but I said, if I have a practice, I will not design for anything that directly promotes consumerism. And I want to design for things that are cause-based or things that promote or inspire ideas. So that's the seed of the studio practice, which is even now comes from that time, I would say. Of course, with as you grow, I mean, with a lot of respect for the big corporations or anything that we don't do, but a lot of what we do can exist because of that. There's funding, there is crossover. So um, it's just a philosophy where I feel like I am in a privileged position to make choice. And if I have that much energy that I can expend in this life, can I use it to do something that I find inspiration and meaning in? And this is the zone that I feel like I can, uh, I find meaning. So that's why the philosophy of Anugrah is this. And we try to work, or our clients are mainly from the cultural, social, artistic, educational, environmental, medical sectors. Having said that, the boundaries are not, there are blurred boundaries. So it's just an attempt to work or respond to things that I find meaning in. And a lot of the team that has been part over the years or is part of the studio, I think becomes a part because they find resonance with this idea. So it's just a space of shared resonance in thought, and that draws uh, people to work together. That's the feeling that I have. But anyway, that's what Anugrah is. So the word Anugrah is, the meaning of Anugrah is gratitude for grace or grace. And Anugrah again is a name that is given to the studio by my spiritual teacher, who, when I requested him to sort of guide me, because when I finished studying in London and went back to India, I went back because my grandparents were both old and I didn't want to miss out spending time with them. It was very clear in my head. So immediately after I finished studying, I went back to Bombay, which is where they were. Um, so my I had a spiritual teacher, I have a spiritual teacher, and he said that, all that you've learned is what's passed on to you. And the word Anugrah that he named the studio, which means grace, is how you let that grace pass through, or how you become a channel to let that grace flow and work happen. So there is that anchoring that, and I strongly believe that I cannot create. Uh, I don't believe in a creator God as well. The belief is that creativity exists and it flows, and uh, there is channels, there's hands, so there's heads and hearts and minds that it flows through, and there is a congregation of that flow, which then leads to tangibles at different points. So that's just a very personal interpretation of it, but that's where I find meaning, and also it's grounding, because sometimes designers and artists, especially in Western countries, I've seen uh, the practice becomes very egocentric, and it's very easy to flow into that unless there is a grounding force that holds. And I feel very grateful to have a guru in my life who helps me to ground. It's just a much more happy space and a meaningful space to have that grounding. Yeah. So these are just some visuals of the studio. Like Ankita and Sham said, we do a lot of books. And the reason for books again is we enjoy narrative building, telling stories of other people. And also it's a very fortunate space because no 2 days are the same when you're working for a museum, a gallery, an artist, or a doctor. or an NGO, you put yourself in their shoes as much as you can. So you get to learn a lot, and through that learning, then comes expression. So again, we've been extremely fortunate to have had so many projects that allow us to dip into all of these spaces and learn and then find ways to express. So it's very hands-on. There's a lot of analog making that goes in. We like to brainstorm on the floor around sheets of paper. We like mark making. We like annotating. Um, a lot of this turns into books, but some of it into exhibitions. So there's the tangible component to the practice, which I find very meaningful, and I value more now than even before, because I now got married 4 years ago, and my husband was based in London, so I moved to London, which means I work remotely with the studio team. So I do miss a lot of this interaction. But yeah, the current practice has teaching and anugrah. So I teach here at university, which also allows for a lot of learning, and being around really stimulated younger people who have lessons to teach every single moment. Okay. Anyway, so this on screen is just an example of books that we've been able to engage with and make over the years. And books as a medium is very interesting because, like a film, there is the component of a narrative. And one thing when I reflect why I took to doing books was also because there is a certain slowness it allows. We don't, a lot of visual media that practices generate also need urgent turnaround, which could be like social media posts or posters, or things very quick that need or in advertising, etc. But with books, you get more time. You get time to immerse. You get time to churn things and then to respond. So I enjoy that, and I enjoy research and dipping into archives. Uh, you know, asking questions to get into people's minds and memories. I enjoy this, and books allow for a lot of this. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to take one step back and share this visual that was shared with me by my tutor when I had this whole existential crisis. And I think it's a beautiful one. So, this pictures of a man selling snowballs. And yeah, when we see this, I think the reflection for me is that a lot of everything that goes around visually that's made, ultimately, it's this like, it doesn't belong to any of us. It's just a snowball will last for like 20 minutes maximum or 10 minutes based on temperature. And all of this will last for 40 years, 30 years. But it's all a matter of relative time, but it's all like that ultimately. So this image is a good reminder. It's on my tag board every day that it um, things are ephemeral. It's a reminder of making the most, and reminder of what, like, to think of what matters each day and try to live that, and not get sucked into too many I don't know, name, fame, all that stuff. Yeah, it's just a reminder. And all of this that I say sounds philosophical, but and I don't, it's all aspirational. I don't think I live it yet. It's aspirational. So it's the journey. Okay. I don't know. I've talked for very long. Yeah. I'll just share this one project, which is why the river documentation became so important even today, because Anugrah as a practice was born because we got a project. Like when I was still studying here, I was freelancing to pay rent, etc. I was working on anything that came my way on the side. And I used to design brochures for this builder in Nasik, real estate brochures. And after I finished studying at the RCA and I had this whole philosophical existential churning, I said, okay, now I don't want to design for all of these very commercial things. And so I had to say to this client who I was designing for many years, and that, I'd like to stop now. I want to do some other things. And he was like, okay, show me what you've been doing. What other things do you want to do? So I showed him the river project and I said, I want to explore culture and ideas and causes. I don't want to design for real estate. And again, very fortunate. So he was like, okay, the Kumbh is happening in India. Why don't you make books on the Kumbh? I thought he was joking. I'd heard of the Kumbh, but I knew nothing more than that. But I knew that for a photographer, it's a lovely place, that landscape. That's all I knew from photos I had seen. So he was like, yeah, you made these books on the rivers. So this also happens around the rivers. It was as basic as this, the conversation. So you can go and document it and make books on Indian culture. And I will do corporate gifting with these books because he also was invested in the Kumbh as a gathering. They have a connect from a faith space, but also um, they help the government in setting up infrastructure as builders. It's partially part of their sort of CSR with the firm that they do a bit of the social, spiritual stuff there. So I said, okay, it sounds interesting, but I mean, we'll see. I thought it was a passing conversation. Anyway, he followed up and said, okay, the Kumbh is happening in a month and a half. And if you need to go, you need to prepare. So will you do it? And there was no way to do this project without going because who are we to make books on the Kumbh? We knew nothing. It was a complete blank slate. So anyway, this is a spread from one of the books, and I'm just going to read this excerpt because it sums up this experience of being at the Kumbh of Allahabad in staying there for 65 days and documenting, staying at the Kumbh in Nasik for almost 70 days, and staying at the Kumbh in Ujjain for 3 weeks in 2013, 15, and 16, which changed our lives as a studio team, changed us all individually as human beings. I'm just going to read this excerpt. It says, the journey had begun on a foggy winter morning in Allahabad. In a couple of hours, it seemed like we had walked into a different season. Layer by layer, we shed our warm clothes and perhaps a little baggage too. The sweat, grime, and dust began to matter less. There was only one direction to follow. In the moving mass of humanity, a feeling gnawed at me. I am no one. And as my eyes locked fleetingly with many a stranger's, the thought completed itself. I am everyone. So this, I think this line in the book sums up my experience of the Kumbh, and everybody who was part of the team. It's a large team, large as in we were about 9 of us, um, had a very different personal experience in this landscape. And not to say that atheists became believers or anything, but faith can mean a lot of different things for different people. Whether it's faith in yourself, it's faith in others, it's faith in humanity, it's faith in God, faith in any form. Faith is powerful. So I think we all experienced that intensely in this landscape, which was quite beautiful. Yeah. And again, this whole thing of being one and being no one, this whole idea of insignificance and universality and insignificance was really powerful for me in personally. It was almost like a dissolving. And then it felt like you don't need to run or you don't need to, it's just about being. That was the feeling. Yeah. And this was in the middle of this kind of a landscape where I'm short in height. My tripod is taller than me when we were documenting. It's like you don't, in this landscape, this is on a Shahi Snan Day, which is Moni Amavasya, 13th of Feb in 2013, most crowded day at the Kumbh, where we were trying to get to the Sangam, the banks near the Sangam, to take pictures of the Shahi Snan the night before this is. So you don't need to walk because you're pushed. It's that flow. It was literally that. But yeah, I was scared about this moment because I had heard of it, but I think it became the most powerful moment for me in the Kumbh, because I felt like I really belonged. And I felt like all of these people are one. And that feeling was very strong. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the feeling of the Kumbh. And all this is just some visuals of the documentation of the 2013 Kumbh. It was overwhelming. Yeah, it was very powerful. Uh, and then what were we seeking? So everything there is about scale. And the only way we could make this book also was, we told the client, why do you want to make a book? Because, there are so many that exist on the Kumbh, and who are we to make books on the Kumbh? We know nothing. So the one thing he told us was that the reason why I want you to make a book is because people like you don't go to the Kumbh. So please go and see what is there and then make a book. And the only way we could do it was experience it and translate that experience of not just ourselves, but everybody that we meet into some tangible form. So the whole book is primary research in formal terms, lot of interviews, lot of conversations, observations, everything is that. And then we said, like, okay, all these people and scale, but how, like, who are these individuals that make the collective, and why are they even there? That is the sort of quest or questioning that we went with. So for us, those people's stories became important. So the book is really, again, a collection of almost 275 conversations that happened on field from people of all walks of life, including saints from akhadas and acharyas to government officials or managing crowd sanitation for a gathering of this scale, to pilgrims from villages for whom they've saved up every penny to be there and don't know how they'll go back, but it's important for them to be there. You see rural India in a way that, at least for me, that experience was seeing rural India in a way that I've read in books. But to see and experience and be in the same space with them was really humbling and overwhelming. So all kinds of historians, a Mark Tully, a Sri Ravi Shankar, everybody was generous enough to talk to us. And all of those thoughts got aggregated into this documentation, which we describe as a team as emergent, because there was no direction. The direction emerged. It's not like a film with a director. It's more like a documentary where you go discover, find, and things happen. Our methodology, very simple. It's hearing people talk about things and then going and finding them visually, or seeing things, observing, noticing, and then having no idea what it meant, but taking pictures and then asking people, what do these things mean? So it was no rocket science, a very simple methodology of documentation. And then there were little things which inspired, like this Nicholas Reren's quote, who says, while photographing, I try not to take, I try to receive. Um, this is our work environment for 60 days. This is how we were living on watchtowers, on tents, in the water, in chai stalls, etc. But it was a very beautiful experience. Yeah, sorry, I get emotional. Anyway, what does the documentation have? Lots of stories of people like this Scooter Baba who people see and bow down to, and we wonder what's going on. And he says that, for me, my way of worship is to make people smile. So he dresses up every day differently in the Kumbh, and people just enjoy talking to him, taking pictures with him. To Daya Prasad ji, who's almost a 90-year-old sadhu we keep trying to ask him, can you tell us about what it means to be a saint? What is your day like? And he keeps going back to the only thing, that there's nothing called a saint, it's only saintliness. And you are that in this minute if you connect to yourself. So very profound conversations to different worldviews, faiths, expression of faith. This guy is milkmen in Allahabad, a lot of them during the Kumbh, before 6 a.m. when they, at the break of dawn, before they even start delivering milk, some milk is poured into the Ganga. Every morning, this is seen if you are on the bridge. Women from villages garlanding the bridges, 2 kilometers, just garlanding, singing songs. It's just faith in a different level. I mean, there are aspects to it, but again, I think it's the lens that you go with. For us, we wanted to understand people, and also, yeah, you can be critical about sustainability, things being thrown and flown in, but that's a lens. For us, the lens was to understand what was happening in the hearts and minds of these people while they were there and what it meant. And then smaller moments like this where around 7:30 after the Ganga Aarti is over, you'll find all of these kids of boatmen flinging magnets and pulling coins out of the Ganga. So little lighter moments. Again, these are things you see, um, which were really powerful for us. Of course, you have a lot of scholarly documentation on the Kumbh, and that's very valuable. But there are these things which make it happen in the moment, also telling us why people are there in the now, in that time. And yeah, there is some preciousness to it. And then, of course, this is Kavindra Pratap Singh ji, who was, when in like a 15-minute conversation, he had told us 30 crowd management strategies, like that extreme governance levels of management, something like this. To these are villagers from remote parts of Punjab who come there for 13 days with whatever grain they have saved to bring in trucks, and they are constantly cooking from like 8 in the morning till 12 in the night to feed in langars, not knowing anyone they are feeding. The whole sentiment of serving, service, seva. This was Andrew, who we met, who built a boat and named it Karuna. He's a boat builder from Australia who came to the Kumbh 1 month before it started with the locals there, built this boat. And for 2 months, he was just um, ferrying people up and down the Ganga for free. He was only interested in understanding people's hearts. That was his only intent. And it was really nice to interact with him. He brought his children, 3 kids from Australia, and he thought this is the best landscape to homeschool them. So he brought them there. Yeah, and then we started also looking at things visually from a design standpoint. Flags as elements were everything was so crowded. So when you go on vantage points to shoot, like the police watch towers, you see so many flags, and flags as identifiers to unite, but also to differentiate, became such important elements that, and those flags were totems. Sometimes it was vegetables hanging, so people knew that their group was there. Sometimes it was pieces of fabric. Sometimes it's a formal flag, dwaja ceremony to mark the beginning of the Kumbh, where the akhadas hoist dwajas. So lots of little tropes like this. We came back with about 2.5 terabytes of footage plus images as a team from 65 days. Lots of interviews as well. This quote has been really important. I had attended Anish Kapoor's exhibition when I was a student here. He says reinvesting in one's own little moments of insight is very important. And this, I think, in how the Kumbh documentation evolved, it was all about just spending time with what people had shared. And then it weaved itself into books. But I'll just go to a slide with that. But before that, what you see on my screen is little thumbnails of work of Mark Rothko, who was an abstractionist, just patches of color, but lots of paintings here. Some more. This is one. And then when you go to the Tate here in London, the entire room from floor to ceiling has this painting. So this change of scale turns something framed as a painting into an experience just by the change of scale. And for us, I think what scale did, we were after personal stories in this landscape, which were very powerful, but the scale made the experience what it was. And so there was contribution of the individual and the collective in making this whole, I mean, the Kumbh is that, it's both, but that scale, the impact of that scale cannot be ignored. That's all I wanted to say with this. And then this quote by Aldous Huxley has been very powerful for me. It says, experience is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. And then Einstein says, 100 times every day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of other men, living and dead. And I must exert myself in order to give it, given the same measure as I've received and I'm still receiving. After going to the Kumbh, we as a team stopped looking at the project as a project because it had given us so much that it was very hard to tangibilize into one book, two books, this much terabyte, these many quantification was very difficult. It started going out of the window because the emotions and the content started taking over. But we knew that we had gone there with a brief. So we had to produce something tangible. But anyway, that whole process of coming back to the studio for almost a year and a half to sense make alongside other projects, because by this time there was a studio set up and there were bills to be paid. And we knew that this project was too sacred to associate any quantification. It became like that. Because it's almost like, okay, finish this in 2 hours, but no, it needs 2 months, then 2 months it was. So there was other things that had to happen to support this to be the way it was. But after coming back, it was a lot of sort of unpacking, really investing in those insights that people very generously shared. And out of all of that, tagging of interviews, putting a whole lot of stories, observations together, this structure emerged. And this is very emergent. There was no plan. It was just grouping things, aggregating in a way that it led us to aggregate, and it turned into 8 books, and 8 wasn't a figure given to us. It was, we couldn't group it beyond 8. It was, we stopped because we were like, okay, now we can't group anything further because it needs its own space. So we are inspired by the fact that this Allahabad Kumbh happens at the Sangam, which is at the confluence of the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati, which is the trilogy. And so we took inspiration from that trilogy structure to build the structure for the books. And like we went with a lot of questions that got answered along the way, we thought the books could also answer these questions which we had. So that's how the whole structure emerged, where every book responds to a question, very simple question. And then there are 3 sort of keywords that respond to it. And this gets into the whole design or information architecture, as we call it, where each book was then given a color. And inside of each book, there were 8 different styles of writing. Again, this is unpacking for a year and a half and seeing what fits as a interview, seeing what fits as an essay. But none of this content except the diary notes, which is us team, first person, and poetic verse, which is a colleague of mine who came to the Kumbh, Jazreel, her name is, who wrote a piece of poetry for every book. But other than that, everything is really from what people shared. It was just finding a way to curate and aggregate and present it in a way that we would like to consume it as young people, because brief was, people like you don't go to the Kumbh. How can you inspire them to go? And this is the information architecture of each book. It starts with the contents, like this is book 3 on Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. This talks about everything that happens in and around the river. Another one, for example, which is services, sellers, and spectacle, has nothing, is all profane. So it's about the management, the meraness of the Kumbh. So we wanted to create not we wanted to create, entry points happened where um, there was something for everyone. Even if you're not interested in faith, religion, nothing, you could go there and understand how management works, or you could understand how collective energy plays a role. And you would find that in book 8, which is about services, sellers, and spectacle. So this is the map of Sangam. We just took that map and said, how can we overlay the structure of this book to create information architecture? So it's not literal, it's metaphorical, but that's how you navigate all the 8 books. So there are 8 books that happened out of this documentation, and each carries a piece of poetry, a few interviews, a photo story, which is purely visual. The story is led by the image and tells you something. A character story, which is an unexpected character, like that Scooter Baba. Every book has one like that. And there are more formal conversations in the form of essays and interviews. So this is what emerged from the, and then there were more graphic design aspects of creating a display typeface, which is like a mesh. Typeface is created on grids, but grids become invisible once the typeface emerges. We wanted to go back because the Kumbh was all about the intangible. So we wanted to go back and represent that. Okay, I'm going to stop. But just a little gratitude reminder. But yeah, if you're still listening on my ramblings, but yeah, if you take 1 minute before I stop, whatever season of life we are in right now, be it joyful, uncertain, busy, healing, beginning again, if you just take a minute to sort of say, what is it teaching us? There's always something. Yeah, so gratitude is a lens that just helps. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to sorry, skip a few, but
Yeah. I think we
here's
can just pause a couple of moments here, Deshna.
sure.
Does anyone need a break, or shall we continue? Shall we continue?
Actually, Sham, just Deshna, you said this lovely quote by Ashish Mehta. Is that what he was?
Anish,
The no, basically take time to have your own, reinvest in your own.
Anish,
Anish
Anish
Kapoor. Yeah,
yeah.
Anish Kapoor. Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Sorry. And can you
No,
say his quote again? Anyway, I guess
yeah,
Sham
yeah,
has this recorded, so I guess I can find it.
yeah. I can pull that up on the screen again for you in a second.
I loved that line because, sometimes, like, just like you felt, so many people have documented Kumbh Mela. Why should I mean, why should we do it? Um, anyway, your whole talk was beautiful, but
This is your takeaway.
yeah, no, and it's like everything she said anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciated her approach to Kumbh Mela, and she's inspired me to also want to go. And I never thought I'll want to go to Kumbh Mela. So, everything about this has been amazing. Anyway, thank you. You
No,
can go back to your talk. Sham, you can.
thank
Actually,
you.
she inspired me to step onto the street and talk to the strangers.
Right, right. Yeah. So my mom's in the hospital right now, so I
Oh,
am talking to random strangers all the time. People wonder if I'm a little nuts because in the hospital everyone is so worried about their own
Yeah,
medical troubles.
yeah.
So,
we
anyways,
we hope
yeah,
she feels better soon. Take care.
yeah. Thank you, and sorry for
Uh,
taking.
Take care, Cham. See you. See you next week, maybe. Thank you, Deshna. I mean, this is beyond what we expected. I mean, you just encapsulated everything. I think probably your entire crux of you, the way you live and the way you approach work into just one hour session. And it is, as you said, uh, you know, there is creativity, and it just needs hands and minds and hearts to flow through. I think you're planted that seed in most of us, probably all of us, and it will manifest in some or the other way. It will flow through us. It's a very inspiring session. Thank you, Deshna.
Thank you, Shyam.
If anyone has any questions, any reflections, any particular thought that they want to sit for, please feel free to ask. Ankita, do you have something to share?
I'll just, maybe there are some messages on the chat, and I'll just look through if there are some questions we can bring up and then take some questions.
Yeah.
That's good, Deshna, for you?
Yes, absolutely. That works. I'm just opening the chat as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Deepak, I think he picked up from the Mary Oliver quote that you shared. Pay attention, be astonished, tell me about it.
That's a lovely one.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deepak. Yeah, Mohan is saying being in it and being off it. What may it mean? And what may Deshna have become by way of photojournaling, especially at the Kumbh? What has changed in her after this experience?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking and listening. So being in it and being off it was a name that came up more like a sentence in conversation while we were, brainstorming or mind mapping after we came back. And we kept having these conversations around, like, initially, especially that before we went with what do we equip ourselves to go to such a gathering. And we always found that we were almost scared that why are we asked to do this, and do we even have the capacity to do something like this, because it is such a profound gathering and there's so much written about it, and there are people in much better spaces to be documenting this, whether it's intellectual, religious, whatever it is. And so there was a bit of that fear when we went. And when we came back, this thing that we would keep saying is that those 60 days when we were in it, we were so overwhelmed with a lot of what we saw and heard, almost like 20, 30 new conversations every day, seeing so much happen. It was very overwhelming, that whole, in a beautiful way, but we could not, though we had to find a strict discipline during the time we were there to make sure that everything was logged in, because we needed to somehow access all of this easily and sense make after. So that patch was fully being in it, and that had its own impact. And we would keep saying that this is not about us, so we should always weave in voices of everybody that have spoken, because they know what they're doing here, we don't. That consciousness was there. But then once we came from it, I think we were so impacted by it that we were different people, that our responses became different in a way. So for us, the being of it was really the distance after having been in it. So it's a bit like that experience of emotion and then that step back to express emotion. Yeah, that's the space that the title, and it was more of a working title that we would just keep floating. We didn't think of this to be the title, but our patron client who we presented at some point thought it was very interesting and very organic. So it just became the name of the collection of books. What have I become after this experience? What has changed? It's hard to put into words, but I think the strongest was the feeling of insignificance in a way that was beautiful. Because earlier, I think I went there fresh from studying in London for 4 years, and there was always, just at the beginning of a career, it was always like, people around telling you, how will you make your mark? You have to be distinct. You have to have a style as a designer to stand out, to express. But this experience almost was like, no, you don't need any of that. You just need to be true, authentic, and everything else falls in place. So I think that shift in me of blending in for something larger, that is what this gathering did to me. And to see the value of blending in, like where the work or the cause became greater than the individual. I saw this happen here, and I think that became then the quest also. It's not about me or her or them. It's about what must be. That's the shift. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deshna. That was wonderful. Very beautifully put that one thing is to be in the emotion, and then the next thing is to take a step back and express what you received from it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. I think there's another question. Deepak is asking, are the Kumbh books available? Well, on point.
Yeah, I just put a link in chat. So currently they are being disseminated. They are in with the client in Nasik. Like we printed 1,000 sets, of which 500 sets of these books were for the client circulation, which he disseminated. And then we had some that were sent off to libraries and cultural institutions, is what the client intended. There are about, I think, I don't know numbers now, but there are a few left which are in Nasik. I will share, actually, if you'd like them, I can send you details on an email if you want to share your email, because there's a small PDF with all the details about it, and I can connect you to them to sort of arrange for that exchange if you'd like to have it. So, or I can send you the website link, and the email there's an email on that as well where you can write to. I'll just put that link in any case. Or yeah.
Thank you, Deshna. Uh, Ankita, do you have any questions?
Yeah, like I just wanted to check, are there any questions, any reflections? I see Navya's hand. Yeah, yes, Navya, please.
I don't have any questions. If someone has questions, I can go after them. I have lots of reflections and I'd like to share some.
You have the stage, Navya. We
Yeah.
can go after you.
Yeah, I'll take some time because Deshna, this was really powerful. I don't even know where to summarize my thoughts with. I'll try to be crisp. But the Brian's water bottle story that you spoke about, especially that analogy that you made with driving, right? For me, that was such a powerful, empathetic storytelling. One was what happened, but one was how you saw it. I think that was just so powerful. And when I saw the pictures of the rivers, both Ganga and Thames, in your cultural landscapes, the first thought that came to my mind was if Sham was there, he would be collecting water from both the places for his watercolor sadhana. That was the first thought that came to me.
That's
But
a
on a
really
different note,
good
yeah,
one.
metaphorically, I think of myself as a river, and especially Ganga, because of the Sangam of Bhagirathi and Alaknanda, because I have both these extreme personalities and I come together and I feel like there's a dance of fire and rain within me, which I really struggled in my childhood to understand. But now they're so well synchronized, especially in my spiritual journey. I've learned that these two beings have beautifully merged themselves into Ganga, and there's this beautiful synchronization that happens. And sometimes I just sit back as an observer and see myself in motion, and I feel so much gratitude for this life itself. And it was so I mean, your storytelling was so powerful. And in fact, this year Varanasi has been calling me, It's been so many years. Somehow, whenever I've thought of it, it's not happened, and I'm taking this as another sign that this is the year. And I did visit Thames this year, so Varanasi is definitely calling me. And so many cultural connotations that you made, it really left me very overwhelming. And I also work with the government schools and tribal school children. And one of my core beliefs in life is that in our whole life, even if we just come across one good mentor, then there is life transformation. And that's really what keeps me going in my, little world. And the story of you and Michael, it just reinforced that belief in me so much. And thank you for sharing that. Um, Also, the story of the snowball, right? In short, that's how the world functions right now. Yet we are so hopeful, because who are we if not for a handful of hopeful people in this chaotic, hopeless world? So yeah, that was also such a powerful picture, and everything that you shared around Kumbh being one and being no one, your thoughts about faith itself. I think that's the foundation of everything that community spaces, especially powerful community spaces like this, that's the foundation, right? And I felt like, I could connect with it so much. And it's absolutely true what you speak about gratitude being a lens. And today I'm going back from here with so much gratitude for this session, Vishna. Thank you, Sham and Ankita, for, for this. It just felt so surreal, walking this journey with you. Yeah, I wish you so much luck. And yeah, I would love to stay connected with your work in some ways, and I'll connect with Sham on how. On a lighter note, if you have internships, please let us know. Some of us may really apply for it. We may use alter names and apply for it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and all your responses. They mean a lot. And yeah, I think it can all be passed on to the grace, because like there's a consciousness that we all are part of, and everything is interconnected, I believe. So everything that you picked up on is it's an aggregation of passing on, and it's just aggregated in this time and space, which makes some of us connect more than others. So yeah, I'm really grateful to everything and everyone that helped it come together and helped you make that connect. It made, I was telling Sham as well, just to reflect the last couple of hours before today and last night when I was just bringing things together was the only thing that happened through this 4 or 5 hours that I spent before was just reinforcing that gratitude and putting me in that space as a reminder to revisit that even more often. So thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Deshna. Thank you so much, Navya. It was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your reflections. If anybody has any other questions, maybe we can take that up.
One question I had was, Ankita, you mentioned, I don't know, it just stuck with me, that she does exhaustive work. Do you still feel that she was doing exhaustive work? Or was she exhausted by doing this?
Oh,
Because
no,
the
exhaustive work
vol
and the volume of work.
I mean, yeah, the volume of work, but I mean, literally, if I were to look at that work as a layman, it really looks exhaustive, the kind of pictures and also the mental work that goes into putting things together, gathering things together, um, terabytes of information, going through that, and so much of work. So how do you, Deshna, how do you really remain sane with so much of information, so much of, I don't know, how do you take this volume of work?
So I think I mean, it's a bit like if you know how much to expect, you would. I mean, if I knew that we'll come back with so much, I may not have gone, to be honest. But uh, the one thing is that the privilege of time. Like I think with this project, um, the patron that we had who was very patient, because there was no like, okay, 6 months, I won the book or the books or whatever after. So that was the advantage of allowing it to all emerge. And then, of course, breaking it down. And again, it seems like me, but this was, like I said, 9 of us. So this is not me doing any work in isolation. It's really everyone, all the pieces coming together, thoughts getting exchanged, and then it emerging, the structure and the work itself. Um, yeah, so in terms of quantum of data or information, I think what helped us is just systematic documentation. And that is something I have to say we pushed ourselves, because there were many, we were waking up at 4 a.m. to go in the morning to see people, do their first prayers in the Ganga, and very often coming back at 12 in the night, because things would still continue with all the Ram Leelas and the Ras Leelas inside the mandaps and the pandals and people discourses. So um, I think that intensity for the first week felt very exciting, because you are going to document, you're discovering. But after the first week, it felt like we have to sustain this through 60 days. And that's when a system started to emerge, where we started taking, like, sleeping alternate nights more, taking roles, specificities, understanding landscape, and being slightly strategic about it. So on field, I think, yeah, the unfamiliarity was good because we were all embracive. But later on, I think structure system emerged from experience, and over time, it was privilege of time, because a lot of this also is sleeping over, and then things happening as you sleep over. Fresh ideas or even new perspectives, etc., happening. And then in the general practice, I think because it's been books now, it's just something that has a lot of word and image most of the time. So it's as good as somebody being a avid reader because they like reading. And to somebody else, that may feel overwhelming because it's a lot of reading, but it's just, I think, interest.
Yeah,
And
I think the systems in place helped you. The designer in you helped you systemize things. And because for
no,
me as an artist, I mean, I was as a kid, I was more towards inclined towards art, and I also explored design, architecture or furniture design. And I really could not fit into this, could not think in the way of systems or structure. But to
you have the
execute,
most structured course.
yes, yes.
Better than anything that I have
Yes.
encountered, at least.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're a very rare person that I met who were able to balance between art and design, to be able to be free at the same time, also have structure and systems in place for you to execute things. So that's a beautiful combination, and I wish I can practice some of it.
You teach us that through your watercolors is testimony to that. I think the work itself has the flow, and then the way you articulate the dissemination has the structure. So yeah, I think you teach us that.
Thank you, Deshna. Medha, do you have any questions?
Questions, no, a lot of,
Yeah.
I would not even say overwhelmed, wrong choice of word, but thankfully Navya helped us with a lot of powerful being the right word. I will absolutely go back, rewatch the whole thing, pull
Yes.
up notes. Especially, I have taken screenshots of all the quotes. But I think brilliant, brilliant sessions. I've started to look forward to these Thursday sessions, and each are better than the other. And not to like brown nose or butter you, but I think this was brilliant and such an honest attempt to catch us up on everything you learned and experienced, and just how you picked those projects and gave us a magnifying glass and a peephole into your view, your world, the process. I think I'm going to leave. I'm leaving hopeful to engage in the world more. I don't know how to put it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very overwhelmed right now in a good sense.
Yeah,
Like,
even I feel like going back through this because there's so
Yeah.
much to digest or reflect upon. Or um, the very first, I think, first 10 minutes itself was enough for me to sit for 2, 3 days and just what's happening there. So, I mean, yeah, I think she put everything, encapsulated everything. I mean, the entire core of her living into just one session. I really thankful that you valued this space and spent some time and put everything together. This is, I mean, as she said, we can't use the word overwhelming, but we feel there's so much to sit with, so much to reflect upon. Each word could become our, spaces to sit and reflect, ponder, and see what we can take away from this. Thank you for putting across, Medha.
thank you, Sham and Medha. I think, yeah, it's all of those amazing quotes and amazing people that hold. I consume a lot of, consume is the wrong word, but um, I stay afloat or inspired in people's words. Earlier, although I am a more visual person, but in sense making, I think I sense make with a lot of quotes. So even if I have time, like doom scrolling is one of the things I do horribly. But the other thing that I do is I just, if I'm feeling a certain way, I'll type that feeling and I'll find quotes of people around that feeling. So that's how I consume quotes or words. So yeah, thanks to all of those people that appeared here. It's all their thoughts and quotes.
Thank you. Any more questions, guys?
Thank you so much, Deshna. Yeah, that's wonderful. And so many quotes that were so rewarding on the screen right now to go through them. And I resonate with Sham so much that it actually felt like maybe we can sit with a particular screen for some time and maybe just take a pause and mull and then talk. So this was very little time. And hopefully like we'll have more time in the future. Yeah. Are there any other inquiries, any reflection, anything?
One question that I have, this is Dipti.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's really lovely to, listen to how you're so open to receiving everything from every side, right? So one of the things that, I mean, it's a personal thing. As a woman, when you do this, especially on an Indian context and in a conditioning, especially when you go to a crowded place or there is like a sea of people, right? It immediately kind of, I mean, for me, it kind of makes me flinch a bit and, doesn't make me feel like doing any creative work because the sense of safety and things like that, which are related. These are a very personal view of things, but because you were, there abroad and the boundaries and the spaces uh, that was much more open. And suddenly coming into the scene of this Kumbh Mela, as a person, as a woman, what happened to you? Like, when was that sense of, that oneness, or, you felt like, oh, I mean, the moment you said that I'm flowing with the crowd, I mean, you just get pushed. I was like, oh my God, how is she doing work like this? So yeah, so I'm just thinking about the practicalities of these things.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very valid point. Just to kind of go back to that time, two things happened. One was when I looked up the Kumbh when this conversation with the to-be patron happened for the first time properly. And the first thought, to be very honest, was, yeah, this is great for photography, but who wants to willingly go to a stampede? That was my first thought. And I have to admit it at that point, because it, from the pictures, that's what that's because what is shown is also scale, and it's part of it. Also crowd, it is part of it. So the impression from the outside is definitely that. The second thing that happened was my mother was very happy because she said she was very worried that after living in London for 4 years by myself, uh, how will I get back into India's loudness and whatever. So she was like, great, go to the Kumbh, then you'll settle back into normal life much easier. So that was the second thing. The third was my dad, who, like all dads for young girls, would relate. Uh, he was like, yeah, okay, this sounds interesting. Go, you can go. I mean, there was a team. That was the consolation. It wasn't me alone. And given that this was just Anugrah was set up on 2nd December, we went to the Kumbh on, I think, 5th or 6th Jan. So literally 1 month after studio set up on paper. Who was the team? The team was my friends, friends of friends, friends of friends of friends, or friends of friends of friends of friends. That's it, full stop. Because you know creative people because you studied that, they are your networks. Client trust, very strong. We were fortunate. So really the people that were with me during this documentation were not strangers as a team. My parents knew that, and even their parents knew that we were a group of people who've known each other, have connections, so we'll be okay together. So that was a consolation from the parents' side of things. About being there, I think the excitement of somebody who does photography and gets to go to this landscape for me was at peak to begin with. So I wasn't thinking too much about anything except that I wanted that photograph from a certain angle at a certain time. That to start off was the goal, or the intent from a very micro perspective. With the crowd, I think we knew what to slightly expect because we knew what we were going into. But when we were there, people, like the crowd is very focused. That may sound almost contradictory, but anyway, so everybody is there for a very strong reason. Uh, and they really don't care about you or the other person in a good way. I'm saying that people have invested time, money, faith, everything to be there. So in that sense, we found very few people faffing, to be honest. You find more faff in the cities, is my sense, but there, everyone was there with a deep reason. So it almost felt like everyone in their own little worlds was trying to make the most of being there. And that, although you're surrounded by so much and so many, uh, you never felt that anyone got in the way because everyone was there doing their thing and there with a reason. So I think that safety feeling was, you didn't feel unsafe at any point. At least we didn't. Of course, you hear of, Naga Babas and this and that and the other under substance influence, this. So if you go to venture into very zones like that, which people also know there are, but you steer away or stay clear of those zones which are deemed to be slightly controversial or whatever, then the large part of the landscape was okay. We were fine. We didn't have any experiences that were off. Yeah. And I think I learned this I was very scared of dogs in my childhood. And then I had a friend who loved dogs, and she kept instilling this in me that if you disseminate fear, the you will get a response to that fear. So stop being fearful. And I think that advice I didn't take in immediately, but this is a close friend. So over time, I think I understood that. And I think it's very applicable in every day that if you trust and if you have that, to a large extent, there's a vibe you give out and a vibe that then is responded with. And I think through studio work, I've really had the opportunity to travel a lot in India, especially, and to parts which are quite remote. But I've never felt unsafe because I've gone there with a purpose, and also I felt like there's enough people looking after us, there's enough good. So, but Dipti, I completely resonate and agree that there are so many layers of clearing that safety net from our own selves to family to the wider world. But I think once there is a clear purpose, a lot of that starts to fade. And uh, yeah, that's just my experience of it.
How beautifully put, Deshna. I mean, this was, you really put it so, I mean, especially when you said there's so many people who are doing good for us, and which means the fear or whatever bad is negligible. I mean, it's just the shift in perspective. And when you go with a purpose, you're already focused and you don't have space for fear also. Your mind is occupied with a purpose. So that was beautifully put. Thank you, Deshna. So I'll share Deshna's Instagram also, Anugraha's Insta on the message, or maybe in the WhatsApp group. You can stay in touch with her. And I would like to maybe if whenever there is a calling, we'll try and see we can do something together on the lines of grace and gratitude, some exercises so that we get even more deeper into this. But thank you. This was beyond what I imagined. This session is very profound, very deep. Every minute, every moment is a scope for reflection for days together. And as Navya was suggesting that I'll go back and Medha was suggesting I'll go back and look at this again and again. So I think looks like most people are going to do this. Thank you once again. Unless someone has any more questions or anything to share, we can call it a day.
Thank you, everyone, so much for your kindness and this space, and yeah, the feeling of I think you all create a space of feeling. I felt very unjudged. Sometimes I feel judged, I have to admit, and this space was like that. So yeah, it's almost like speaking to myself. It felt like that. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Deshna.
much, Deshna. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.